The State of Israel is today presenting its reply to South Africa's presentation at the International Court of Justice, where Pretoria has requested the court to impose measures that include Israel halting its military operations in Rafah and Gaza in general. South Africa also requested the World Court to rule that an investigation be conducted on reports of mass graves found in Gaza. Israel says its military operation is aimed at stopping Hamas from launching attacks on Israel in future. Israel legal representative Gilad Noam has been presenting his oral argument to the World Court.
South Africa presents the court yet again, for the fourth time within the scope of less than 5 months, with a picture that is completely divorced from the facts and circumstances. Israel is engaged in a difficult and tragic armed conflict. South Africa ignores this factual context, which is essential in order to comprehend the situation, and also ignores the applicable legal framework of international humanitarian law.
On that note, South Africa is briefing the media, so let's cross live to that.
What is your reaction on that? And also, what do you expect the ICJ ruling to be? Are you optimistic? Thank you.
So I think the first thing is the Genocide Convention is very clear on what constitutes the crime of genocide. It's a suppression crime. The same provisions are found in the Rome Statute. And in terms of how we approach the court, we're following the law to the letter. Genocide turns on intent. We looked at intent coming from Israeli senior officials. We first raised that in our application in January. We repeated that in our oral arguments in January. We repeated some of that yesterday. We didn't have the time to go into detail. When the merit stage emerges, we'll be able to put a fuller account of intent. Intent is at the heart of genocide. And we feel that we have a very strong case. And we feel that even in this provisional measures stage, where we don't necessarily have to prove intent at this stage, we've put enough evidence before the court on the genocidal intent coming from Israeli leaders. So we are not making a mockery of the Genocide Convention. Nobody is exempt from international law. There's no special exemption for any state from any provision in international law. The Genocide Convention does not exempt the Israeli state from genocidal actions. And to argue that is to argue for exceptionalism. And we believe that exceptionalism has given rise to the kinds of impunity that we see Israel behaving with. If you heard the opening statements from my colleague here, that institutional impunity has been there for 7 decades. Disregard for international law, disregard for binding resolutions of the Security Council over many, many years. Most recently, the binding resolution that called for a ceasefire for the month of Ramadan, and the provisional orders which are binding. So we are not making a mockery of international law. We are trying to use it to the best of its extent. It is Israel that actually has to be held accountable for not complying. So in terms of what we hope from the court, we can only hope that we've put the evidence base in front of them for them to make the best decision possible.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Carlos Dada from El Faro, El Salvador. You have specifically asked the court to order a ceasefire while Israeli troops are mounting around Rafah. What I mean is there's some kind of urgency in your request. I wanted to know if you explicitly asked for a date for a response for it to make sense.
So we have not explicitly asked for a date. We've expressed urgency, given the fact that you've just outlined, and the fact that even as we speak, attacks continue, that we've seen that immediately after our application was launched, attack moved from Rafah to, again, the north of Gaza. So we hope that the court will make a decision urgently, and judging by the manner in which they're engaging with us, I do think they will give us a rather speedy response, maybe perhaps early next week.
Any more questions?
One last one.
Yes, sir.
Martin Simons from Reuters.
Which media house?
Reuters.
Reuters.
So there was an incident inside and the live was cut. Could you tell us what happened and what your reaction to it was?
There was I think one of the people in the gallery, we're not sure who. It's a public gallery, and basically just shouting out in protest, essentially, yeah. And that person was then escorted out, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right.
Can I ask you a question?